Hello everyone, today we are going to be talking about all things state board with the practical exam in the state of Utah for Master Aesthetics. I am first going to start by taking out my trash bins, and they go in the order trash, items to be disinfected, and soiled linens, trash being closest to you. And you want to have these labeled on all four sides. It can be written or typed, it doesn't really matter, and make sure they are also lined with a trash bag. Next thing I'm going to do is get out my kit and set the lid into it so it's not touching the ground. First things I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a pair of floating gloves that are just sitting in my kit. And I can leave my kit open for this because I'm sitting over my kit. If I were to leave it, I would have to close my kit completely. Next thing I'm going to do is grab my barbicide wipes and my hand sanitizer and close my kit back up, slide it back under the table. Now I'm going to take a barbicide wipe and first disinfect my table, including all four sides of the table. I'm going to disinfect my hand sanitizer, including the nozzle. Oops, almost dropped it. And then I'm going to disinfect my barbicide wipes. Once they've been disinfected, I can then set them on my table. Next thing I'm going to do is remove my gloves and throw them in the trash. I'm going to sanitize my hands because I threw those away. And then I'm going to get back into my kit and I'm going to grab a few things. First things first, I'm going to grab my universal supplies. I'm going to grab my Client 1 bag. Both are labeled as such. And then I'm going to grab my mannequin. I will be referring to her as Debbie throughout this test. Sliding my kit back under my table, I am first going to get out everything in my universal supplies bag. In this bag, I have an extra baggie of SD wipes, cotton rounds and gloves, a bottle of spray water, a Kleenex box, and a first aid kit. Now in this bag, I had an extra baggie of SD wipes and cotton rounds. You don't need that, you really just need one. I'm going to set that to the side and start setting up my Client 1 bag. In this bag, I have some towels and a head wrap for my mannequin. Some SD wipes for Client 1, a mask for microdermabrasion, and my protective goggles. I have my microdermabrasion handpiece, which is just a marker with a string, a flashlight for LED, some protective eyewear for my mannequin, and my products. These will go in a certain order. First is cleanser. Next is toner. Next is my massage oil or massage cream. Then degreaser and my sunscreen. Then I'm going to bunch those bags up and throw them away. Anytime I throw anything away in this test, I'm going to need to sanitize. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set out my towels for Debbie. So one towel is going to go beneath her, just sitting on the table like such. Then I'm going to set Debbie on the towel, and I'm going to put one towel over her décolleté. Next thing I'm going to do is put her head wrap on with the hairnet. You can also use a towel for this. It does not have to be a headband and a hairnet. You can use a towel if you prefer that. Once she is all set up, I'm going to sanitize my hands. And then I'm going to throw on a new pair of gloves. Once I have my gloves on, I'm going to sanitize. I'm going to make sure everything on my table is exactly where I want it. Just like that. And then I'm going to be good to step back to indicate I have finished. Trinity's going to be helping me with cleansing of the face. She's going to start by sanitizing her hands, and she's going to need 4 SD wipes for this section. Make sure that when you get your SD wipes out, you're not reaching into the bag, otherwise everything would have to come out with you. Rather, try picking out what you need. And she had a little extra one come out, and that's okay. Any extras are just going to be thrown away at the end of the section. And you can set those next to Debbie. First thing I'm going to do is grab one of my SD wipes and my cleanser. And she's just going to dispense that over the trash onto the SD wipe. She's going to set that back at the front of her table, and she's going to cleanse one eye with the SD wipe. She's going to throw that away in the trash and sanitize her hands. Next, she's going to take another SD wipe and dispense it again over the trash onto the other SD wipe and cleanse the other eye. She's going to throw that away and sanitize over the trash can. And then she's going to take another SD wipe and her cleanser again. And as though she's taking off lipstick, she's going to cleanse the lips. Throw that away and then sanitize with 2 hands. She's going to take her cleanser again and dispense that over the trash into her hand this time. And she doesn't need her cleanser after this, so she can either put it back up at the front of her table or she can put it in items to be disinfected. Next, she's just going to cleanse the face for a few seconds. Next, she's going to take a Kleenex and she's just going to wipe off her hands. Oh, she dropped this one. That's okay. If you drop something, just pick it up with a barbicide wipe and change your gloves. But she's going to cleanse her hands, throw that away, and sanitize. Now she's going to take her cleanser, put it in items to be disinfected, and sanitize. Then she's going to take her spray bottle and dispense that onto an SD wipe. We are doing what's called a clinical cleanse in this test, where we just take off the cleanser with a wet SD wipe. Throw that away and sanitize. And then she's going to take one more SD wipe and her toner and dispense that onto the SD wipe. That can go in items to be disinfected now, and we're just going to tone the whole face. Once she's done with that, she's going to throw that wipe away. She's going to sanitize her hands. But first, she's going to pick up that Kleenex that she dropped with a barbicide wipe. She's going to pick it up, bunch it up, and put it in her gloves. She's going to throw it away. She'll sanitize over the trash can. And then she'll put on a new pair of gloves and she is all done. Next, I'm going to show you how to do manual lymphatic drainage. So first I'm going to step forward and I'm going to sanitize my hands. I need 2 SD wipes for this section. And again, I'm just going to pick them out. I'm not going to reach into the bag. Just set those next to Debbie, close the baggie, and I'm going to grab my massage oil, and then I'm going to dispense that onto one of my SD wipes over the trash can. And now my massage oil can go in items to be disinfected. Then I'm going to lift the towel a little bit, and I'm going to put it on her collarbones on both sides, right below the ear on both sides, and right above her eyebrows on both sides. I'm going to throw that wipe away and sanitize. Then I'm going to take 2 fingers and I'm going to make 8 to 10 stationary circles right above the collarbones. Once I finish that, I'm going to come just below the ears where I placed it the first time and do 8 to 10 more circles. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to take 3 fingers above the eyebrows and I'm going to make 8 to 10 more stationary circles. Once I'm done, I'm going to feather off and sanitize my hands. And I'm going to take my last SD wipe and my water, dispense that onto the wipe, and then I'm going to wipe off those 6 areas where I first placed the massage oil. I'm going to throw that wipe away and sanitize. Don't forget to fold the towel back over when you're done, sanitize, and then you are done, so you can step back. Next, Trinity is going to do particle microdermabrasion. So she's going to step forward and sanitize over the trash can. And then she's going to need 4 SD wipes and 2 cotton rounds for this section. So she's going to pick those out of her bag. Alright, she has her SD wipes. She's going to set those next to Debbie, and then she's going to grab her 2 cotton rounds for eye protection. Make sure to close the baggie back up. And she's just going to set that right at the front of her table again. First things first, she's going to take the first SD wipe, and then she's going to dispense that degreaser onto her SD wipe. Now I'm still going to need this for a later part in the test, so I'm going to set that back up at the front of my table. And we're just doing particle microdermabrasion on the forehead, so she is only going to degrease the forehead on this. Once she's done with that, she's going to throw that wipe away and sanitize her hands. And anytime you use degreaser on this test, you will need to pat dry. So we're going to take just a dry SD wipe and just pat Debbie's forehead dry. She's going to throw that away and sanitize. Next, Debbie needs eye protection, so she is going to grab those 2 cotton rounds, and I like to get them wet so they stick a little bit better, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Oop, got a little spray for the kitty. She's just going to set those on to Debbie's eyes, and because we touched a mucous membrane, she's going to need to sanitize. Next, we need our protection, so we're going to put on our safety goggles and sanitize. If you wear glasses, you don't need eye protection. You can just take your glasses off and put them on to simulate you putting on your protection. Next, we're going to take a face mask and we're going to put that on and sanitize. And now we are ready to do our microdermabrasion. So she's going to unravel her hand piece, which is just a marker with a string attached to it. Drape that right over your shoulder and make sure you hold the skin taut on this. We're going to do vertical strokes first across the forehead. And then we're going to do horizontal strokes across the forehead, holding the skin taut the whole time. Once we're done with that, our hand piece is going to go in items to be disinfected. Then we're going to sanitize our hands. We're first going to take off the eye protection and sanitize because we touched a mucous membrane. And then she's going to put her glasses and items to be disinfected, sanitize her hands. And then she can take off her mask, which is going to go into the trash. Sanitize with 2 hands. And now we need to take off those particles that are on Debbie's forehead. So we're going to take just a dry SD wipe and wipe those away in one direction. Throw that away, sanitize your hands, and then take your second SD wipe. We're going to get this one wet this time, and we're going to do exactly what we just did in one direction. Now we have particles on our hands, so we are going to take off our gloves, throw those away, sanitize, and then step back. 2 hands. And that is particle microdermabrasion. Next, I'm going to show you how to do LED. First, I'm going to step forward and I'm going to sanitize. I'm going to need new gloves after particle microdermabrasion and 2 SD wipes for this section. I'm going to take my first SD wipe and my degreaser again and dispense that onto the wipe. Now I don't need my degreaser anymore, so that can go in items to be disinfected. Then I'm going to degrease the entire face this time. Once I'm done, I'll throw that away. I will sanitize my hands. And then because we use degreaser, we're going to have to pat dry. So I'm going to take my second SD wipe and just pat her whole face dry. Once that's done, I will throw that away, sanitize my hands, and I am about ready to start doing LED. First, she needs her eye protection. This can be some sunglasses that you break the sides off of, some swimming goggles, some tanning goggles, anything to cover the eyes. And then I'm going to take my flashlight that does have to work. Just drape that over my shoulder, and then I'm going to shine it on my wrist to show that it works. First, I'm going to shine it above the forehead for just a few seconds. Turn it off. Come to one cheek, turn it back on over a few seconds. Turn it off to the other cheek and do the same thing. And then over the center of the face. Then that is going to go into items to be disinfected. I will sanitize my hands. And then her eye protection is also going to go in items to be disinfected. I'll sanitize my hands And then this is the last step on client 1. So we're going to go ahead and put on some sunscreen. I'm just going to dispense that right into my hand, put that in items to be disinfected, and then put that sunscreen on. Once I'm done with that, I have some sunscreen on my hands, so I'm just going to use a Kleenex to clean my hands off a bit, and then I'm going to sanitize. Once I'm done, I'm going to step back to indicate that I have finished. Next, Trinity is going to show you how to break down work areas. So we're going to first sanitize. Next, I'm going to take all of that protective equipment off of Debbie. And Debbie is now just a mannequin again. I'm going to take all those towels and headband, and those will go in soiled linens, and the hairnet will go into the trash. Then she's going to sanitize her hands. Those extra SD wipes will go into the trash, and then she's going to sanitize. Then she will step back to indicate she is done. Here is a kitty break. Next, I'm going to show you how to set up for client 2. So I'm going to step forward and I'm going to sanitize. And I'm going to set Debbie to the side and all of my things on my table to the side. I'm going to grab a barbicide wipe, and the easiest way to do this is to break your table in half by disinfecting one half first, including the sides of the table. Once I've done that, I'm going to take all the stuff on my table and disinfect that and put it on the now clean side. Once all my stuff is clean, I'm going to disinfect the other half of my table with a barbicide wipe. I'm going to pick up that barbicide wipe that I dropped, take off my gloves, and sanitize my hands. Now I'm going to break into my kit, and I'm going to get a new pair of floating gloves. Again, making sure you're setting your lid in the tote so it's not touching the ground. Just grab the pair of floating gloves and go ahead and throw those on. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my client 2 bag, still labeled client 2, and then I'm going to close my kit and slide it back under my table. And now I'm going to set everything up just the way I want it, including all the stuff that I had already on my table. So in my client 2 bag, I have first my protective equipment for Debbie, all my products, my steamed towel, I have a silicone bowl, which is optional. We'll get to that in a second. I have a fan brush and some plastic wrap, my exfoliating brush, my ultrasonic skin scrubber, my microcurrent hand pieces, and that is it. Next, I'm going to set out my products. First is going to be distilled water, and then my degreaser, and then the occlusive barrier. Next is my AHA, my neutralizer. After that is my conductive gel, my sunscreen, and my mud mask, which does have to be a different color, and I will cover that when we get to that section. I am going to throw those baggies away, and I'm going to sanitize my hands. Next, I'm going to set Debbie up in her protective equipment, just the way I did with client 1. I have a towel underneath her. I have one for her décolleté. And then I have a headband and hairnet for her again. Now you can use a towel for client 2 as well if you'd prefer that. Once that's done, I'm going to sanitize my hands, make sure everything on my table is exactly the way I want it, and I'm going to step back to indicate I have finished. Trinity is going to show you ultrasonic of the forehead and upper lip. She's going to first start by stepping forward and sanitizing. And she's going to need 2 SD wipes and 4 cotton rounds for this section. First thing she's going to do is grab her distilled water and an SD wipe. And then she's going to dispense that onto the wipe and put it onto the forehead and the upper lip. And she's still going to need that distilled water, so she's not going to throw that one away quite yet. She's going to throw that wipe away and sanitize her hands. And now Debbie needs her eye and ear protection. So she's going to take first 2 cotton rounds and tuck those right into the headband. And because we're going between mucous membranes, we're going to have to sanitize before we go to the eyes. Next, she's going to take 2 more cotton rounds and get these ones wet this time so that they stick a little bit better. And she's just going to stick those right onto Debbie's eyes. She's going to sanitize one more time. And now we're ready to do the ultrasonic. So she's going to take her spatula. This can be like a silicone spatula, a metal spatula, a paint scraper, whatever you decide. And then she's going to make first some vertical strokes down the forehead. Then she's going to do horizontal strokes across the whole forehead. And then on the upper lip, we're going to flick lightly upward so that the proctor can tell we're not getting it onto the lips. That spatula is now going to go in items to be disinfected because we are done with it. We're going to sanitize. Now we're going to take off the eye and ear protection in one swift motion and throw those away. Sanitize one more time. Now we need to take off what we just did. So we are going to take our last SD wipe and our water and just wipe off the forehead and the upper lip with that same wipe. She's going to throw that wipe away. She'll sanitize her hands. And then she will step back to indicate she is finished. Next, I'm going to show you microcurrent. So I'm going to step forward and sanitize. And I'm going to need 2 SD wipes for this section. I'm also going to need a little plastic cuppy to put my distilled water in, and I'm just going to set that right next to Debbie and close my bag. I'm going to take that first SD wipe and my conductive gel and dispense that on. The gel does have to be a gel consistency, so something like aloe vera, but that's going to go in items to be disinfected, and I'm going to apply that gel onto the eyebrow. I'll throw that away. I'll sanitize my hands, and then I'm going to take my distilled water one more time and fill the bottom of my cuppy with that. That can go in items to be disinfected now, and I can set the cuppy next to Debbie. I'll sanitize my hands, and now I'm ready to do microcurrent. So I'm going to take my hand piece and unravel it. Drape that over my shoulder, and I'm going to dip those microcurrent hand pieces into that distilled water. And then I'm going to do movements on the eyebrow, bringing the bottom one up to the top. I like to do about 3 or 4 passes of this so that I know the proctor can see it. And that's kind of the movement that you're going to be doing. That can now go on items to be disinfected, and the cuppy is going to go into the trash. I'll sanitize my hands, and I'm going to take that last SD wipe and just wipe off the eyebrow from that gel. I'll throw that away, sanitize my hands, and I'll step back to indicate I'm done. Next, I'm going to show you AHA. I'm going to step forward and I'm going to sanitize my hands, and I'm going to need 4 SD wipes, 2 cotton rounds, and a couple of other things that I will get in just a second. Now I'm also going to need a popsicle stick and 2 Q-tips for this section. I'll just set all of that next to Debbie and close my bag. First thing I'm going to do is take an SD wipe and my degreaser. Dispense that onto the wipe, and degreaser can go in items to be disinfected. I'm going to degrease the whole face this time. Throw that away, sanitize, and because we degreased, we are going to have to pat dry. So I'm going to take that my next SD wipe and just pat her face dry. I'll throw that wipe away, sanitize my hands, and then I'm going to take my occlusive barrier and my popsicle stick and just get some of that occlusive out with that popsicle stick. Now this popsicle stick cannot be set down, so this is the only time in the test that you can throw things away without having to sanitize. I'll take my first Q-tip and I'm going to put enough around the eyes that you can see it. Just around one eye for now. Then I'm going to flip the Q-tip, making sure the proctor can see me flipping it, and put occlusive on the other eye. When I say occlusive, it can just be Vaseline. Next, I'm going to throw that away, grab my second Q-tip, and I'm going to put it on either side of the nostrils. Flip the Q-tip, get the rest of that occlusive, and put it on the lips. Then I'm going to throw both the popsicle stick and Q-tip away. I'll sanitize my hands, and now she needs her eye protection. So I'm going to take my 2 cotton rounds and just stick those onto the eyes. And now she's ready for her AHA chemical peel. So I'm going to take my first SD wipe and my AHA. And my AHA can now go in items to be disinfected. And I'm going to apply that to the whole face. Once I've applied that, I'm going to throw it away, sanitize my hands. Now I have AHA on my hands, so I'm going to change my gloves real quick. Sanitize my hands, and then grab a new pair of gloves and throw those on. Once I have that on, I'm going to count to 10 to simulate the AHA sitting on the skin. I'll take my last SD wipe and my neutralizer. And I'm just going to apply that to the whole face again. I will throw that wipe away, sanitize. And now we need to remove all of the occlusive. So I'm going to take those 2 cotton rounds and get as much of that off around the eyes as I can. I'll throw those away, sanitize. And with a new SD wipe, I'm going to take off the occlusive around her nose and mouth. Next, I'm going to sanitize my hands, and this is the last step on the face. So what we're going to do is put on some sunscreen. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to sanitize my hands, and then I'll step back to indicate I'm done. Next, Trinity is going to show you how to do body treatment, dry exfoliation, and mud mask. So she's first going to step forward and sanitize her hands. She's going to remove that towel on the décolleté completely. And she's going to dry exfoliate the area. We have a brush in this kit, but you can also use an exfoliating glove if you would like. Once she's done with that, that brush is going to go into the trash because it is a single-use item. She'll sanitize her hands. Next, she's going to grab her silicone bowl and her mud mask and dispense that into the bowl. Over the trash can. That mud mask can go in items to be disinfected. And we're going to take our fan brush and our plastic and just set those to the side for a second. Throw that baggie away, sanitize her hands. She's going to grab the fan brush and she's going to put that mud mask all over the décolleté. Now the mud mask does have to be a different color, so I used water and food coloring, but you can also use things like body lotion and chocolate milk powder. It just has to be a different color. Next, she's going to take a piece of plastic and she's just going to put that directly on the décolleté like it's a body wrap. Put that towel over top of the plastic wrap and just put some pressure on the area for a few seconds. Next, she's going to take that towel back off and as much of that mask as she can get with that plastic. She'll throw the plastic away, sanitize her hands, now she's going to get rid of the mud mask. Both of those items can go into the trash, but if you decide to use a disposable cuppy instead of a silicone bowl, that cuppy will have to go into the trash. Next, she's going to take her steamed towel and wring it out over the trash can to show that it's wet. Make sure to test it on your inner wrist and then take off that mud mask with that towel. That towel is now going to go into soiled linens. She's going to sanitize her hands. Throw that baggie away that had the steamed towel. Sanitize one more time. And now she's going to put that towel back over the décolleté. And then she will step back to indicate she's done. Last but not least is blood exposure incident. So she's first going to stop the service by taking off her gloves, and then she's going to sanitize. Next, she's going to take her first aid kit, and in this first aid kit, she's going to take out a new pair of gloves, a band-aid, and an alcohol wipe. She's going to close the kit back up and put that back up front, and go ahead and throw on those gloves. The very first thing she's going to do is take that alcohol prep pad and put the wrapper in her other hand. Nothing's going to go into the trash. Then she's going to wipe off that wound from Debbie, put it in her hand with the wrappers, and open up her band-aid. Next, she's going to put that band-aid over where she cleaned it and put those wrappers and tabs into her hand with the rest of the wrappers. Take that glove off first and put it inside the other one. Then you can remove the second glove, throw it away, sanitize, and then she will step back to indicate she's done. I really hope this helps you guys. This was a lot of fun to film. Thanks for watching.